This season on Navigating Abroad, we're back at the World AI Festival in Cannes, talking to some of the brightest leaders in artificial intelligence. We'll be delving into the important questions around the impact of AI on our world, what the ethical implications are, and how we can ensure these technologies are used for good. Meet Daniela Merlano, founder of ThrAive and a positive psychologist and coach. Her mission is to create a more empathetic world by building a mindful Web3 with clear values and purpose, and educating like-minded people through an academy. She's Colombian, living in London, and uses AI Clip to power up emotional healing and uplift her clients. Daniela, it's so wonderful to be here in Cannes with you today. Thank you so much for joining us on Navigating Abroad.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for having me. I highly appreciate having this conversation with you.
Well, of all the people that I got to interview on panels, I thought you had such a unique story and entrepreneurial journey. And I would love if you wouldn't mind unpacking for us a little bit about your company and how you came to be doing this.
Sure. So it all started about a year ago, not even a year ago. I went to London. I'm from Colombia originally, and I went to London to do my master's in positive psychology and coaching. I was 5 years ago one of the first cohorts, Latin American cohorts, to get certified. And I found it because I really didn't see myself as a therapist. I was placing psychology in organizational psychology kind of thing, but my parents split up. And I knew that was going to be very, very tough for my mom especially. And I needed something that I felt could save her for focusing on how hard that was going to be, because I knew it was going to be hard. So I surfed the internet and I found the Holbein Institute, and I found the Latin American side of the Holbein Institute. So I went for it. It was like a year-long certification. And what it ended up happening is I found myself connected to the mindset of a proactive well-being figure. And that's positive psychology. So positive psychology is the science of flourishing. Positive psychology is inviting us all to understand well-being, not from feeling -5 and asking for help only, which we should, but mostly when we're in zero, when we're okay, training ourselves daily, understanding ourselves as a whole being, so we can get ourselves in a +5, +6 emotional state. And the usefulness of that is we've got to build our emotional fitness or emotional well-being as a muscle. So when challenges come, whatever that means for each one of us, because it will come, we have a muscle trained for it. So
Yes.
That's my love for positive psychology, and that's why I chose going to London to explore my master's there and have some research on it. And I think by half of it, I understood that if I wanted to stay, and that was as far as I was going back then. If I wanted to stay in London, I wanted to be in the upfront of emerging technology, because I wanted to understand the people that were looking to the world 5 years ahead of it, what they were thinking of. But I knew nobody there. I knew nobody in the emerging technology. I had no experience on it. So what I did was I closed my LinkedIn from Latin America, and I opened a new LinkedIn from scratch, because the algorithm was going to just be fed by Europe and emerging technology.
Yep.
And all I had to publish and to write content on, so I was not a ghost profile, was positive psychology. So I started becoming a voice of a mindful tech world, of a tech world that is understanding how to develop itself according to a people first minded, according to what will produce positive impact for people now and in the future. And I think it was like 6-7 months after that, I grew over 5,000 people, my audience.
Wow.
Which made me feel listened to, maybe feel heard. And by September, October, because of that curiosity and being immersed in that world as I was doing my master's and all that time, I found AI Clip tools, which are the generative AI made to produce images, text to image. They became very popular for architecture, for arts, for design, marketing.
Is that like a Lensa kind of application?
Yes, but Lens AI uses one of the diffusion open source models
Okay.
to produce their thing.
Okay.
there's various of them nowadays. It started with 3 main ones, which are Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, and Open DALL-E 2. And part of my background also is a bunch of self-work with positive psychology, with meditation, with active imagination. Like, I've been through that diverse process. I've been in my strongest healing process as well. So I
wanted to scale that wisdom to a broader audience.
Exactly. So I found these images and I started thinking that, for example, phototherapy and art therapy helps reduce stress and anxiety around 20 to 50% because of the power of the images. But those are still random images. So what I thought with these tools and combining what I could do as a therapist, because yes, I've always worked in companies, but on the side, I've always been a therapist since 5 years ago. So what I started doing with my patients was guiding them through active imagination, guiding them through the meditation myself, talking to them, talking about their strengths, talking about like giving them self-recognition with my voice. And as I guided them to replace a figure, a form that made them feel that way and remember that emotion of belongingness and courage and confidence, and then using the tool to build as close as I could that space, that figure, that form, to deliver that to them.
Amazing.
And create a positive emotional trigger. So I was exploring with that, and then my patients started giving me or showing me the screenshots of their phone screensaver because they were placing it there to remember before a meeting. So I had a very difficult conversation today. I look at my phone and I'm like, yeah, I remember how it feels to be courageous, right?
Yes.
And they started placing that in their screens, in their phone call, in their video calls in Zoom, etc., for the same purposes. So I thought, why, like, given that technology is moving forward to be more accessible to people, that me, a non-tech background person, a positive psychologist, I am using generative AI and learning the positives of it so I can deliver something good for the world, why not scale it? Why not use it in a way that is not me, my time, and me and you only, but that can be your, like I say, like when people go to the gym, yes, they have to be the ones to do the job and exercise, but having the coach on their side, talking to them, like giving them that other like
positive reinforcement, accountability,
exactly.
Focus, right?
Focus, exactly. So that's my dream with this tool, and that's how I got into ThrAive. And actually, I love the name because it's ThrAive, but with AI.
Yeah.
So I got in meditating. It was a huge moment for me. But what I love the most is that it's a well-being hub where you can train yourself and feed yourself on the positive emotions you are caring about for your growth, for what you need today, from creativity, from courage, confidence, and accountability. Because the goal of it is that you're not just doing the exercises to recall the emotion within yourself, but it also gives you notifications about what makes you feel courageous within. And there's where the NLP systems come, because the hub looks like Courage tab. You have your creative tab, and that's where your images land, the ones that you've been creating when you feel that way. You have your expression tab where you write about, today I felt courageous because, very short lines, and the audios. So within that, you receive notifications as, for example, this month you mentioned your work as 40% of the times of what makes you feel courageous. It is you. It is you. Like, you have no idea how powerful it is when I tell my patients about things they've done already, and what does that mean about their strengths being alive, their strengths being powerful. It's them. So it's giving back the power of healing to them in their own self-recognition, in positive reinforcement.
I can see how that would be so valuable. I advised for a number of CEOs and senior leaders across tech, and the thing that always blows me away is I'm like, wait a minute, why are you bringing me in? You went to Harvard, you have a PhD, you're leading a $150 million company. There's nothing I can tell you that you don't already know. But what you recognize is they need a mirror. They need a reflection of somebody that's been in their shoes, that understands how fast it can go from the best day ever to, oh no, have we lost the whole company? Like that can be like 2 hours, and it could happen 3 times a day. So those moments that matter where you can reconnect with your own inner wisdom and help to build yourself, I could see that being such a game changer for leaders.
It is very powerful, and for everyone, like everyone has their own challenges in their own state. And the thing is, I see this as that's why I say as a left hand, because it's reminding you. And when challenges come, all of us, it's impossible to see ourselves in the zoom out.
Yes.
It's really hard. That's part of the job as therapists. But what I see is, and how I would love that to happen, is that you could, thanks to some technology hubs or apps that doesn't have to be just ThrAive, you could know yourself better, gain that self-awareness and that accountability. So as a therapist, I can enhance that. I'm not creating your awareness, I'm pushing you up from that awareness, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And when I think about how many of these technologies have evolved in the marketing and advertising space, they're really learning about our core psychology and our profiles, and then helping us have nudges to adjust our behavior in a direction. So being able to provide those nudges to uniquely support people that have a vision, that are trying to go invent the future, that are doing something that's incredibly challenging. I know no one that doesn't have periods of doubt when you're going through this journey. And so to be able to empower them to get unstuck quicker and, you know, reconnect with their intuition, reconnect with their vision. I can see how it's going to be a very quick adoption cycle for such an amazing tool.
There's 3 curious facts on that. The first one is digital mental health tools grew after COVID, of course, but I think it was 53% in 2 years.
Wow.
Not just because, yes, the mental health crisis grew as well, but because of people wanting help. Wanting accessibility.
A pull for it.
Exactly. Another very
It feels like it's destigmatized in a lot of ways.
And that's gratefully also because of the future generations of Gen Zers and millennials. They're very open to talk about mental health.
Yes.
Not as open to talk about their own problems, that's another topic, but they want to have the conversation, which is different. And according to that, is 43% of Gen Zers are more willing to spend money in tools that are data-driven to make themselves better, to make their experience better. So that's positive, of course.
Yeah, because a lot of the apps I see out there in this space are subscription-based models. And so I've developed my own app before. I know what it feels. Breaking through the noise in the app market is incredibly challenging. It is a really wonderful trend that people are willing to invest in themselves, so they see that return on investment, and it probably helps that therapy can be pretty costly in person.
Exactly.
So it looks like it's a good return on investment.
Exactly. And I think it was, according to Deloitte's report of 2022, sorry, $500 million were spent in mental health apps.
Wow. Well, I'm a subscriber of Headspace. I can relate.
Yes, and that's where I feel that, and we were talking before about that, and I love it. There's tools for calming ourselves, like Calm, Headspace. They're wonderful to reduce stress and anxiety and sleep better and like being in that state. We also need tools to uplift ourselves. And as we were talking, physical fitness, for having a helping health, we need to train our muscles. Emotionally wise, it's similar. We cannot just dial down the stress. We also have to upskill what makes us great. And that's where we build our best possible self. That's part of the why positive psychology exists, and I love it because of it as well. And with my patients, when I started trying it out, 75% of them felt 90% more emotionally uplifted when they had the tool, when they had the image to reflect on, and when they had the reminders on what made them feel great, what they were great.
And is that because it engages more of your sensory?
See.
Okay.
Exactly. So the magic mic there is you hold an emotion within a visual that connects with you because you're creating it, and artists really resonate with that. They have the magic to then translate that into beautiful art pieces. And that effect is the effect I'm looking for with the images. So once you connect that emotion with what I'm talking to you about in the wording of the active imaginations, because I'm talking to you, and then when you see it, it's like activating a lot of your senses at the same time towards the same outcome, which is the emotion.
I can very much relate to that. I invested in my first piece of fine art this year.
Hey, congratulations.
And it's a painting of a sunset, of a beautiful beach in a specific location, and a place that's special to me. And like when I look at that picture and I just sink into it, I can hear the waves lapping.
Yes.
I can feel the warmth of the sun setting. It's a visceral experience, even though I'm only looking at it. It's bringing all my senses back.
Exactly.
I can taste the salt in the air.
That's yourself, and it feels like that. And because it's made to enhance positive emotions, the other very nice thing that happened. So because of people sending me all these screenshots and stuff, I just wanted to ask them their feedback and see what was going on. And 60% of them wanted to continue in therapy and to continue in their inner growth process because they felt the courage for it.
So you're unlocking
so powerful.
the vision that it's even possible to feel
that
better
way.
most of the time.
And to nurture that.
Yeah, and I think so many of us are experiencing unsolicited change in life. I think that there's always been a percentage of the population that's been more comfortable with change than others, and we were all kind of forced into a new model where it was happening whether you liked it or not.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have for business leaders that are feeling all the demands of, the emotional baggage of leading through times of crisis, as well as having to be responsible for other people's well-being, and reconnecting with what their special, unique powers are to be able to re-energize and lift up their teams?
Lovely question. I'll go back to someone called Donaldson.
Okay.
So when I did my master's dissertation, I did it around how passion becomes courage, and for so you generate actions to perform better. And the framework for it was Donaldson, because he added on our well-being system, the mindset. So what was going on so far was, for us to deal with change and to deal with emotions positively, we need relationships, positive relationships, we need engagement, we need accomplishment, we need meaning. But when he added the mindset, I think it's a game changer. Because cognitive behavioral therapy works with that, with the power of perspective as well. So this coming back to change, I always ask people, what if we were taught that change was good? If we were taught that change was good, we would lose less time in relationships that are not adding value, because it's okay.
Yes.
We would make more choices belonging to ourselves first, because change is okay. So comfort zone is out of the question. We would be more open to failure because we want the change for learning. So all of those are ingredients for understanding that if I move my company, if I move myself as a leader, understanding that change is the new normal, and understanding the brightness of it, I might be better armed for it.
Yes.
And expanding that through the organization is very, very important, because when I worked, my experience in organizations is culture building, and it's in startups. Startups move really fast and change is happening whole day.
Yes.
So one of the things was that, if we embrace change in that way, we become so adaptable that it's even fun.
Yes.
And that's how I chose to move my life as well. I changed from country, from industry, from everything within less than 9 months. It's a bunch of emotions, but once the mindset is there, you create resilience. And from my master's research, I think was around 46% of the people that actually could themselves feel more courageous with their passions, they talked about the mindset. They talked about how much they were looking forward to understand change, and they adding value to the change.
Yes.
Am I making sense?
Yeah, it's legacy building, right?
Yes.
When you can separate your identity from your ego and just see yourself as an agent of bringing something better forward, you don't have to be as attached to all the ups and downs of it. You can really just be part of the journey.
Yes, and as you said, seeing yourself as a human, as a whole being, it doesn't matter that much at the long run how many people are you leading for.
Right.
you're still human. And for when it comes to change, accepting that vulnerability for me is key, to actually ask the right questions, to actually listen to the people, listen to their needs, and placing the patterns there to see where to start first. When change comes, there's a bunch of questions that can be overwhelming, but when you actually listen to them, you get to understand and prioritize what should I answer first, because it's moving the more emotions.
That is really fascinating. And from the side of the founder going through that change, what I had to reconcile with was a lot of the changes that I'd like to see are not a single lifetime worth of work.
No.
It's multi-generation. So focusing on where can I contribute versus feeling a sense of over-responsibility to solve, I think is such a mindset shift that freed me, that my worth wasn't on the line every day.
Yeah.
Like, I wake up worthy, I go to bed worthy, whether it went well, whether it went terrible. Like, it's not table stakes any longer.
Yes, and what you just said about worthiness was one of the things that moved me the most on my healing process. Because of my parents being divorced, I had a lack of worthiness, of feeling worthy enough to be someone that would change that decision.
I would imagine many people can relate to that feeling.
Yes. And that would be reflected in many sides of my life, even work. So coming back to what you were saying, I dreamed for so long, and when I started gaining that myself, that if everyone would feel worthy, they would be more powerful in how they deal with all decisions, how they deal with daily life.
Yep.
And I love that you brought that into the conversation, because I feel very connected to giving the world something that all of us can feel worthy every day, indistinct of the circumstances or the situation.
Yeah, and I think it was one of the gifts of motherhood for me. I don't look at my children when they were born and be like, did they get an A on the test? I'm going to decide if I'm going to love them.
Yeah.
Like, you get this gift of seeing that, love is about that connection, the relationship. It's not weighing the moment and seeing if they have performed enough to earn it.
Totally agree. And that's one of the game changers that I feel Netflix did with the logics of their culture. And going back to like the leadership side of this, and to building culture in a world of change, and more with emerging technologies moving this fast, they gave people a culture where they own their job so much that their confidence driven.
Yes.
So because there's space for mistakes, there's space for change, there's space for raising hands. I've not worked in Netflix, but I've read about their culture, which is nice. The effects of that long term is people who are not ready to own it, they'll look for a space that might be more comfortable for them, and that's okay too.
Absolutely.
But as you make them ready to own it, you make them ready to get in the boat for change. And that's okay.
Yeah, and I do feel like failure and tolerance of failure is table stakes for innovation.
Same.
If you don't have a culture that supports that, you're never gonna generate enough bravery and resilience in your people to be able to take the big risk. And that's where we have these disruptive leaps forward.
Totally agree. And actually, you just made me pop something, which is, that's why I love ThrAive, and I love the emotions of courage and accountability and creative, because they're looking for change.
Yes.
They're actually, what I think is reducing the emotions that makes us talk like stress, anxiety, depression, anger. Well, anger makes people move, but still, it makes us go into a state of calmness for clarity.
Yes.
But we also need these emotions of being kind, courageous, forgiving, resilient, optimistic to move. And when we feel more proud of ourselves is when we actually move.
Yes.
When we actually take action and see what happens with that. And if I would draw a line of how growth feels like, sometimes when we're in that state and we move, we feel like this. But then we get used to it and feels like zero again.
Yes.
And then another challenge comes and we move and we feel like this again. So if we understand ourselves as a whole being, we might be aware that we'll be feeling like a loop, but what's actually happening when we zoom out, and that's the why I love technology can show us that to us, we've been going like this.
So we never go back to zero.
No.
We're constantly moving up.
Exactly, and that's where so many people are very harsh to themselves, because I used to feel worthy and now I got this new job which is more challenging and I stopped feeling worthy again. So I'm back to zero, and no, it's just next stage of its challenge.
Yep.
Right?
We're just going up from here.
We're just going up from here because of change.
It's wonderful. So for people that want to access your app and stay invested in your journey, what are the best ways to stay connected with you?
Yeah, I'm very approachable and I love to help as much as I can. The best social media to connect with me is LinkedIn, Daniela C Merlano. I'm very close to launching beta product for testing. So for people to
That's
get
a big
waitlisted,
milestone.
it's huge and it's been amazing. For people to get on board with it, the best way is going ThrAive.io, ThrAive written ThrAive.io. There you'll see a bit of what's the aim of it and the features, and you can get in the wait list. So it's.
Oh, I will be visiting that site very shortly. I think it's going to be really exciting to watch your journey. This is one of the more human experience-oriented connections for AI that I've seen, and this really excites me to see the scale of how it can make lives better for such a wide variety of people that maybe wouldn't have access to these kinds of tools. So
Totally agree.
Bravo for your innovation, and I highly encourage our listeners to join your beta that have that innovator profile, that love to be early in the adoption of technology and help you really see some of the potential that maybe is latent in it.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate a lot this time with you.